He clung to the small fragment of iron with trembling hands. For a boy so young, his eyes were filled with a very adult wonder at the story his grandfather was telling. The story of ships traveling past stars into the horrid dark of deep space, just clutching to the hope that they'd make it. For the wide-eyed youth, this was the start of a very similar kind of story, one reaching into the dark to find something of value at the end. Hello, and welcome to Errant Astral Flotsam, a solo actual play podcast where I, Gray, tackle the story of, well, we don't know yet. This is my first session 0 of the game Starforged, and we will see where this actually takes me as far as what's going to happen, who I'm going to be playing, and what exactly we need to do. First things first, I am not going to go over the rules of this game. You will learn as I play, but the majority of character creation and the steps therein are pretty intricate, and so I will be going over those to some extent. The first exercise that Starforged gives you as a player is to make truths that will be true about your universe that you play in. The official term for the galaxy that or the area that we will be playing in space is called the Forge, but this stretches much beyond the Forge. These are truths of not just the Forge, but also the universe in general. So let's start with the first truth, called the Cataclysm. Now, you can roll for these if you so choose. You can come up with them randomly. I will be choosing mine. I will be selecting from the options that they have. They give you 3 options each single time, but they also provide space for you to write in your own. I'm going to go with, because I would like to demonstrate and experience the game for what it is, I would like to choose one of the 3 that they provide, but I'm just going to choose it instead of rolling for it. So for the Cataclysm, the choice that I'm going to make is that interdimensional entities invaded our reality. Without warning, these implacable and enigmatic beings ravaged our homeworlds. We could not stand against them. And with that, our last defense was destroyed, our hope gone, and we were cast out to the Forge. Here we can hide, survive, and these entities took the form of swarming animalistic creatures. Which I think we'll go with interdimensional entities invaded our reality. Without warning, these implacable and enigmatic beings ravaged our homeworlds. We could not stand against them. With the last of our defenses destroyed, our hope gone, we cast our fate to the Forge. Here we can hide, survive, and so forth. It gives you an option to choose what form the entities took, and I'm going to choose the option swarming animalistic creatures. Very Zerg-esque, in my opinion. Or if not Zerg, then Tyranids. For those of you that know anything about StarCraft or Warhammer 40k. Next truth that we will be tackling is the Exodus. And I will be going with a ragtag fleet of ships propelled at tremendous speeds by experimental FTL drives carried our ancestors to the Forge. But the technology that powered the ships is said to be the source of the Sundering, a fracturing of reality that plagues us here today. The experimental drives used by the Exodus fleet are forbidden, but the damage is done. The Sundering spreads across our reality like cracks on the surface of an icy pond. those fissures unleash even more perilous realities upon our own. Did we flee one cataclysm only to inadvertently create another? I think that's very interesting because it creates conflict, right? I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, but I don't want there to be like this massive scale war going on between survivors of this cataclysm. I want there to just be threats. And this sundering, this unleashing of other realities upon our own sounds like an excellent way of doing that. So the next truth is called communities. And I'm going to be choosing the option that says, few survived the journey to the forge. We are scattered to the winds in this perilous place. Our settlements are often small, starved for resources, and on the brink of ruin. Hundreds of far-flung settlements are lost and isolated within the untamed chaos of this galaxy, and we do not know their fate. Again, I want there to be a sense of impending doom, a sense of real weight to this travel that happened, which is further reinforced by the next truth: iron. Iron vows are sworn upon the remnants of the ships that carried our people to the forge. Many of our outposts were built from the iron bones of the Exodus ships. Fragments of the ships were also given to survivors as a remembrance and passed from one generation to the next. Today, the Ironsworn swear vows upon the shards to honor the sacrifices of their forebears, the essence of the places left behind, and the souls of those great ships. I think that this lends a lot of weight to not only the act of swearing an iron vow, but also to the history of this place, the history of sort of what's happened and what will continue to happen along the lines of this story. So next we will be choosing laws, and laws and governance are kind of a difficult one for me because I want there to be able to, I want my character, who I will create in a little bit, to be able to have leeway, have enough freedom to be able to do whatever he wants. But at the same time, I don't want there to be lawlessness. So we're going to choose the option that says laws and governance vary across settled domains, but bounty hunters are given a wide latitude to pursue their contracts. Their authority is almost universally recognized and supersedes local laws. Through tradition and influence, bounty hunter guilds are given free rein to track and capture fugitives in the most settled places. Only the few foolish stand between a determined bounty hunter and their target. While I don't want to play a bounty hunter, I like the idea of running into one. So that will be a future nugget that we can sort of tap into if we want to. Next is religion. And I'm choosing the option, our faith is as diverse as our people. Many have no religion or offer an occasional prayer out of habit. Others pay homage to the gods of our forebears as a way of connecting to their roots. Some idealize the natural order of the universe and see the divine in the gravitational dance of the stars or complex mechanisms of a planetary ecosystem. And many now worship the primordials, gods of a fallen people who once dwelt within the forge. Again, this is building a massive amount of history and creating a large, diverse sort of sect of or section of people that we can interact with. Speaking of people we can interact with, the next section really taps into special people. Magic is the next section, and while I was very tempted to pick the option that sort of gave us things called paragons, which are people who wield special powers. I think I want to go even more ubiquitous. I think I want to go even more widespread with it and say that magic is as follows. Unnatural energies flow through the forge. Magic and science are two sides of the same coin. Soon after our arrival, some displayed the ability to harness the forge's energies. Today, mystics invoke this power to manipulate matter or see beyond the veils of our own universe. But this is a corrupting force, and most powerful mystics are respected and feared in equal measure. So seeing that magic is sort of got a darker side to it, I like that, and also makes it a little bit more widespread. The next section is communication and data, and I'm going to choose the one that says in settled domains, a network of data hubs called the Weave allows near instantaneous communication and data sharing between ships and outposts. Because of their importance, Weave hubs are often the targets for sabotage, and communication blackouts are not uncommon. Beyond most populous sectors, travelers and outposts still are commonly isolated and entirely off the grid. I like this because it makes sense to me that communication would be widespread where resources are dense, and would be really uncommon where resources are scarce. Next is medicine. With medicine, I'm choosing the option that says, to help offset a scarcity of medical supplies and knowledge, the resourceful technicians we call riggers create basic organ and limb replacements. Much was lost in the Exodus, and what remains of our medical knowledge and expertise is co-opted by the privileged and powerful. For most, advanced medical care is out of reach. When someone suffers a grievous injury, they're often turned to a rigger for makeshift mechanical solutions. I think that is a really interesting idea, and I really want to play a rigger, kind of. But I might just make an NPC a rigger and try and interact with them, because it would be very fascinating to me to see what kind of people grow vestigial organs and grow spare limbs and stuff like that. That would be very interesting. Next is artificial intelligence. And I'm choosing the option, the vestiges of an advanced machine intelligence are coveted and wielded by those in power. Much of our AI was lost in the Exodus. What remains is under the control of powerful organizations and people, and is often wielded as a weapon or a deterrent. The rest of us must deal with primitive systems. And I think that again plays into this history that I'm building in my mind of this somewhat low sci-fi universe where technology has jumped forward and then sort of rolled back a little bit. Next section is wars, and I'm going with the option, here in the Forge, resources are too precious to support organized fighting forces or advanced weaponry. Weapons are simple and cheap. Starships are often cobbled together from salvage. Most communities rely on ragtag bands of poorly equipped conscripts or volunteers to defend their holdings, and raiders prowl the Forge in search of easy prey. This, to me, is also playing into this history that we're building, where it creates a deterrent for me to go with the typical empirical Star Wars-esque universe where everything is it's all lasers and gun shows, and is not necessarily going to be I don't really want that. I want a little bit more Wild Westy. I want a little bit more scarcity to this universe, where people are just scraping by and there's nothing that you can do beyond that. I think that creates a more interesting and quite honestly more motivating backstory for me. Anyways, moving forward, we talk about life forms. This section, I'm going to go with This is a perilous and often inhospitable galaxy, but life finds a way. Life in the Forge is diverse. Planets are often home to a vast array of creatures, and our starships cruise with spaceborne life forms riding in their wake. Even animals from our homeworld carried aboard the Exodus ships have adapted to life in the Forge. I like that. I want... You know what would be really interesting? I have this idea that my character is sort of like a xenobiologist or somebody who studies creatures, because I've already looked through this whole book, the whole Starforged book, and there is ways to generate random animals, and I'm fascinated by that. I want to try that. So let's put a pin in that and we'll come back to it. The next truth that we are dealing with is precursors. And I'm going with, over eons, a vast number of civilizations rose and fell within the Forge. Today, the folk we call grubs, scavenger crews, and audacious explorers delve into the mysterious monuments and ruins of those ancient beings. Incomprehensible technologies, inexorable time, and the strange energies of the Forge have corrupted the vaults of the precursors. Despite the perils, grubs scour these places for useful resources and discoveries. But some secrets are best left buried, and many have been lost to the forsaken depths of the vaults. This gives us vaults, which is really cool, and also adds to the history of, like before we said, many civilizations have risen and fallen. I think, yeah, I think that should hold true. And so this universe, the Forge, has been used before, and so many civilizations have come and gone that it's ripe for the picking for people to delve into these ruins and find really interesting things. The last truth that we are dealing with is horrors. Now, horrors are a little bit different than creatures in Starforged. They're a little bit more menacing, often undead, or ghosts or anything like that, can fall into the horrors category. And I'm fascinated by them to the point where I am really just trying to lean into their existence. Just because I want to encounter some and see what happens. So let's go with the option: most insist that horrors aren't real, but spacers know the truth. When you travel the depths of the Forge, be wary. Some say we are cursed by those who did not survive the cataclysm, and the veil between life and death is forever weakened. Supernatural occurrences and entities are especially common near white dwarf stars. These stellar objects, which spacers call ghost lights, are decaying remnants of a dense star. I think that gives us an ample opportunity to find a reason to come across some of these things, and maybe we'll have to fight them, maybe we won't have to fight them. The point is, we'll come across them, and that's really what I'm interested in. Next, we have to create our character. This is hard. This is hard because this is the person that we're going to be with for forever. So first we need to give them a name. Let's do the name in a second. First, we need some assets. There's a lot of options for assets. Assets are sort of how you build your character. There's no classes. There's no builds or anything like that. Assets are really how you fundamentally change your character into something that you want to deal with and mechanically influence what they're capable of. So the first two assets that you get are paths, called paths, which are basically like ways that you can influence your surroundings. There's something Some of them are as simple as like Blade Master, and others are more complex. But I think I'm going to take two that are really, really interesting to me, which is Empath and Naturalist. Empath is kind of fascinating because it allows you to sort of read intents and emotions from other characters. And Naturalist gives us some advantages in with life forms and planet-side ecosystems. And I think both of those are building towards this xenobiologist character that I have knocking around in my head. Next is our backstory. And that really is tough. That really that's really tough because where do you start with a xenobiologist? Well, if we're going to write a backstory, I think the first thing to do is give this character a name. That's not necessarily how the order in which the book recommends doing this, but I'm going to give him a name. I'm going to give him the name Crius Petros. Crius Petros. Crius being a Greek titan, and Petros being earth or rock, I think. Needs a call sign. How about tonic? Sort of like a cure? Yeah, tonic. We'll go with tonic. Then backstory. Well, I think Crius from a young age was fascinated by history, sort of sparked by being given one of those ancient pieces of iron from a ship, and like being told its heritage, being told its story. Then growing up, probably grew up with a lot of pets on like an agricultural world. So he soon studied to be a xenobiologist. But his blend of like historical interest and biological knowledge would soon take him to discover that maybe there's gaps in the record. Maybe there's empty spaces where normally there should be answers. And no one would have seemed to know what kind of creatures caused the cataclysm. We know, of course, that they were small and animalistic swarms, or maybe not small, maybe just large swarms, large creatures in large swarms. But that wouldn't be in the record, or maybe it would, but there's not enough detail. So yeah, I think that he would. I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but he'd get his spacecraft somehow, and then he'd go off and try and find answers himself. I think that that's the backstory that we're going with. So our background vow, a large part of Starforged, like Ironsworn that preceded it, is swearing iron vows. Swearing on iron, I will vow to do this, and then accomplishing that vow and ticking it off gives you experience. And that's how you sort of measure progress in this game. I think he's going to vow, his background vow will be, Crius's background vow will be, I vow to learn the true nature of the Cataclysm's invaders. And we're going to set that as an extreme vow. Epic would fit here too, I think, but Epic progresses so slowly that I don't think you ever are ever expected to finish it. And I kind of do want to eventually finish this vow, so I'm going to put it as extreme. Okay. Then, next we need to board our starship. So, take the Starship Command Vehicle Asset card. This is your interstellar spacecraft. This is how we're going to get from place to place, and this is the asset that really, really defines us as sort of this Starforged individual. we need to give it a name and a history and sort of envision it. Envision what it looks like. So I think I'm going to call it the Observer, which really just comes down to, like, this is maybe it's not the original name of the spacecraft, but he calls it the Observer because he feels like that's his role. And that gets into the final asset that I'm going to take in just a second. But in general, I think that that is a good name for the starship. Then how did I get it? I think he just found it. There's an option here that says, found, abandoned, in perfect condition. That sounds perfect to me, where he just came across it and it was abandoned, and he's a little bit reckless and more than a little bit willing to take an opportunity when he sees it, and said, okay, you want to give me this opportunity, I will take it, and just took off with the ship, no questions asked. And so envision the starship. I think that while a lot of these interesting are really interesting, no, actually there is one here right now that is jumping out to me. An option that envision the starship. I think things tend to go missing for no logical reason is a really interesting descriptor. So we're going on that. Things tend to go missing on the Observer for no logical reason. Maybe it's gremlins. Maybe there's a ghost aboard that's pilfering all of these things. I don't know. We'll figure it out as we play. But for some reason, things tend to go missing aboard it. I like that. Okay. Next, we choose our final asset. And for this, I am going to choose the sensor array, which just allows us to detect dangers and helps us on when we try to undertake an expedition. At the moment, assets can can grow, can evolve, can change, can get better as we invest our XP. But I think the sensor array makes a whole lot of sense for him, for Creus. So we're going with that. Next, we have to set our stats. Stats in Ironsworn there's just 5 stats, and they range from 3 to 1. You get 1 stat that is at 3. You get 2 that are at 2, and 2 that are at 1. So Edge, which is sort of your long-ranged agility, quickness, prowess, I'm going to set at 1. Heart, which is courage, willpower, empathy, sociability, and loyalty, I'm definitely going to set that at 2. Iron is sort of physical strength, endurance, aggressiveness, prowess, and at close quarters combat. I'm giving that a 1. I don't think that Creus would be particularly good at this. Shadow is your sneakiness, defense, deceptiveness, and cunning. I think that that's going to be another 2. And wits will be his number. Wits will be his highest with a 3, which is his expertise, knowledge, and observation. I think that he is a scholar through and through. The last thing that we kind of need to do, there's other mechanical stuff that needs to happen, but I'll do that in the background. What needs to happen is we need to figure out what Creus looks like. And I really think that Creus would be sort of a very pale, black hair, sort of down to his shoulders. I think that he might even have a tattoo or 1 or 2 tattoos, mostly of biological stuff, maybe fungal or anomalia. Something interesting, something a little bit better than just a weird tiger or something. Something a little bit more meaningful to him, but maybe we'll figure that out as we play. And I think he wears just utilitarian garb, just super utilitarian clothing. He's not into fashion. He's not into looking stylish. He's just clothes are just a means to an end for him. Of just, they keep me safe and they keep me warm. Good. Yeah, I think that's Creus. So next we need to actually tackle the sector in which we will start our story. Our starting region will be the Outlands. This is the place that is recent expansion. Settlements are scattered. Navigation paths are uncharted most of the time and perilous. It's sort of the frontier. And I don't think he started here. I don't think that he grew up in the Outlands, but I definitely think that he ended up here. So, for the Outlands, we're supposed to develop 3 settlements, and we get to do a lot of detail there. You know, you come up with a settlement name, a location, a population, its authority, and sort of what's happening in that location at the same time. So let's generate some planets. First planet that we're going to get is... Well, rather, I think I'm just going to choose planets. I think I'm going to choose planets for what makes sense, and then we might roll up planets later if we go to a different sector. So, what I'm going to roll up or write is the first planet is a vital planet, which is basically like an Earth-like planet. It's going to have an ideal atmosphere, a large moon, and with grasslands, islands, and temperate forests for its biomes. This settlement that we're developing right now is going to be planet-side. I'm going to call it Bell Landing, and the planet's name is going to be Ames Hope. Bell Landing is going to have a population of a few hundred. Its authority will be fair. It will have the Environmentalism Project. And its trouble will be hostile life forms. We'll get back to this in a second, but that's where we're going to start probably. Next, we're going to do a rocky planet with marginal atmosphere, dense rings, and towering rocky spires. We're going to call this planet Servan. And this planet, yeah, we'll do another planet-side settlement and call it towering rocky spires, Marrow Hold. Kind of like the bones of the earth kind of thing. Marrow Hold will have a couple thousand population, a tolerant authority. It'll be focused on expansion and trade. Yeah. And then our final settlement will be... Our last settlement will be Lastport. Sure. It'll be orbiting. Let's do an orbital. It'll be orbiting an ocean world named Whitepool. Lastport will be have a population of hundreds, an oppressive authority, and it will be focused on automation and mining. Yeah, I like that. Okay. So, focusing back on Bell Landing, it has hostile life forms as a problem. I think that's because... Well, let's leave that open-ended for now. What it will have is sort of temporary or seasonal location, which means that Bell Landing is like largely due to migration patterns. Its location is based on tracking animals, and I think that's why Creus will end up there. The sector that we've just created is going to be called the Broken Finger sector. It's in the Outlands, and it has a trouble. What is the trouble? I think I'll go with this. The trouble is magnetic disturbances disrupt communications. That so we previously talked about how like the weave gives communications for populated areas. I think that's true. Maybe this place even has the weave normally, but at the moment it does not have the weave because magnetic disruptions are causing that to break down. We have to mark some passages, which are basically areas that you can easily travel from one place to another. I think we're going to connect Bell Landing and Marrowhold together. So those will be easy to travel between, and then Bell Landing and Outbound, which basically just means that Bell Landing will be the first spot that we can enter through and probably the best one to leave from, should we leave this sector, which we probably will. But I want us to get started there. Next, and this is kind of an interesting thing, we need to make a connection on this settlement in Bell Landing. So a connection is an important relationship with a non-player character, and to deepen those connections, you got to spend time with them. You got to interact with them a lot and do certain things, and they can offer benefits back if you do that. So making a connection when you search out a new relationship or give focus to an existing relationship, roll plus heart. So this is our first roll of the day, and let's just start there. Let's roll the dice and see what happens. Roll plus heart, and remember our heart is 2. So whatever happens on the d6, we add 2 to. Okay, so that's 7. 7 against 4 and 8, so that's a weak hit. And with a weak hit, on a weak hit, you create a connection. You give them a roll and a rank whenever your connection aids you to move closely with their roll. Add +1 and take +1 momentum on a hit. This connection comes at with a complication or a cost. Envision what they reveal or demand. I think we will do that in the next episode. We will figure out what is demanded of us by this person next time. What we know for now is going to be their name, their location, and all of that stuff. So, what is their name? What is their role? What do they do? And what rank are they? Well, obviously they're in Bell Landing. Names escape me. Just go with the first thing that comes to head. Chaunders. I don't even know if that's a real name, but Chaunders. Chaunders McFerrin. And McFerrin will be a xenobiologist like me, like my character. And unlike Creus, I think he's going to be a rigger as well. And remember, riggers are those interesting people that grow body parts and are sort of medical knowledge people. I'm going to describe him as bright-eyed, heavily bearded, and just sort of like the basic researcher archetype. And we're going to lend him the rank of formidable. That puts him in the middle of the pack. That seems like a good place to establish there now. Okay, great. We have created our sector, we have created our character, and we have created our first connection. I think with that, we are going to end this first session, this session 0 for Starforged. Next time, we will pick up with Krios Petros in the Broken Finger sector and see where this story takes us. But for now, thanks for watching.